The first day I walked into that office, I never expected my life to change the way it did. I was nervous, clutching the strap of my bag like it was the only anchor I had in this world. My palms were damp, my heart beating a little too fast, and every step I took echoed like a drum against the marble floor. Everything felt too big, too polished, too professional for someone like me. I was young, new, and unsure if I could even belong here. And then I saw her. She was standing by the glass wall of her cabin, her posture straight and commanding, like she belonged to the world of leaders and dreamers. She was 30, though if you asked me, she could easily pass for younger, the kind of woman who carried herself with grace and confidence that age could never dim. She wore a perfectly tailored navy suit that framed her figure in the most elegant way. Her hair, dark chestnut falling just past her shoulders, was styled effortlessly, yet not a strand was out of place. God, her eyes. A piercing gray that seemed to notice everything, as if nothing in the world could escape her. When she spoke, even from across the room, I felt it in my chest. Her voice was smooth, low, and steady, commanding yet gentle, like velvet with steel hidden beneath. I remember the way the entire staff seemed to lean toward her when she gave instructions, the way people looked at her not out of fear but out of admiration. I found myself doing the same, not because she was my boss, but because her presence alone was magnetic. From the very first day I was gone. I didn't know if it was her tone, her confidence, or the way her smile softened the edges of her otherwise powerful personality. But whatever it was, I couldn't take my eyes off her. Every little thing about her felt intoxicating. The way she adjusted her glasses when she read a file, the way she walked with such purpose, the way she occasionally laughed at someone's joke, her laughter ringing like music in the air. I had never felt like this before. Not so quickly. Not so intensely. I didn't want to admit it to myself at first, but deep down I knew. I had a crush on her. Of course, it was ridiculous. She was my boss. She was older, accomplished, someone everyone respected. And me. I was just the new girl, sitting behind my desk, pretending not to notice every time she walked past. But every time she did, my heart skipped in the most helpless way. I remember telling myself, don't be silly, it's just admiration, you're just overwhelmed. But admiration doesn't make your hands shake when she leans close to explain something. Admiration doesn't make you forget your words when she suddenly looks you straight in the eye. Admiration doesn't leave you replaying every small interaction in your mind late at night. No, this was something else entirely. It was a crush. A hopeless, breath-stealing, heart-thudding crush. For days, I carried it silently, secretly enjoying every excuse to be in her presence. If she asked me for a report, I would prepare it with extra care, just to see her nod in approval. If she asked me a question in a meeting, I would answer nervously, hoping she didn't notice the blush rising to my cheeks. And if by chance she smiled at me, really smiled, it felt like the entire office faded away, leaving just the two of us in that moment. Then one afternoon, while chatting with a colleague in the break room, I overheard something. Emma's name came up, followed by a soft laugh and a whisper. You know, she's not into men. Never has been. First I froze. My heart skipped a beat so loud I thought it would give me away. I turned, pretending not to listen, but my ears caught every word. They spoke casually, like it wasn't a big deal, like everyone already knew. And maybe they did. But for me, it was as though the universe had just cracked open a secret I was never meant to find. Emma was a lesbian. The realization hit me with such intensity that I had to excuse myself and step outside for air. My crush, which I had buried under the excuse of impossible, suddenly didn't feel so impossible anymore. The hope I never allowed myself to have quietly stirred awake in my chest. It didn't mean she would ever look at me the way I looked at her, but it meant that maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't locked every door shut. From that day on, something shifted inside me. Every glance, every word, every smile we shared carried a new kind of electricity. A silent promise of something magical waiting, just beyond the horizon. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if my feelings would ever be returned. But I knew this. Emma wasn't just my boss. She was the reason my heart beat faster, the reason my mornings felt brighter, The reason I found myself dreaming of things I had never dared to dream before. And deep down, somewhere I didn't dare to say out loud, I wished for one thing. That someday, somehow, this crush would become something more. That day had been endless. Numbers, reports, meetings, one after the other, like waves crashing on the shore of my already exhausted body. By the time evening fell, I felt as if my bones were carrying the weight of the entire office. My eyes burned from staring at the computer screen, my shoulders ached from hours of tension, and my mind buzzed with words and figures I no longer had the strength to process. I told myself I'd just rest my head for a minute, just a short pause before I finished the final report. My arms folded on the desk, the wood cool against my cheek, and the low hum of the air conditioner filled the silence around me. The office had emptied out hours ago. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the occasional sound of footsteps in the corridor, a door closing, the faint echo of voices fading into the night. But inside my cabin it was quiet, so quiet it almost felt like another world. I didn't mean to fall asleep, but my body betrayed me. Slowly, like sand slipping through an hourglass, I drifted away. The darkness wasn't heavy. It was soft, like sinking into a cloud. For the first time that day I let go. I don't know how long I slept. Minutes. An hour. What I do know is that the moment I woke, everything around me changed. At first I felt it. A gentle touch against my shoulder. Not a push, not a shake. Just the lightest brush of fingers, as though someone was trying to wake me without breaking the fragile peace of my dream. Then came a voice, low and soft. My name whispered like a secret meant only for me. Hey, wake up. My eyes fluttered open, heavy with sleep, and the first thing I saw was her face, so close, framed by the soft glow of the lamp on my desk. Her expression wasn't the stern professionalism I usually saw during the day. It was gentler, tender, almost protective. The kind of look you'd give someone you didn't want to disturb, but couldn't leave alone. Emma, I mumbled, my voice hoarse from sleep. You were out cold, she said with a small smile. Her hand lingered on my shoulder, warm through the fabric of my blouse. You must have been exhausted. I blinked, struggling to pull myself back into reality, but my heart wasn't helping. It pounded wildly, each beat loud and uneven, as though my chest could barely contain it. The way she looked at me, the softness in her voice, it felt too intimate, too close, and yet I didn't want it to stop. I'm sorry, I whispered, embarrassed. I didn't mean to. Shoo. She pressed her finger lightly to her lips, silencing me before I could finish. Don't apologize. You work hard. You deserve to rest. Her words wrapped around me like a blanket. And before I could even process them, something happened that I would never forget for as long as I lived. She leaned closer. For a second I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But then I felt it, soft, feather-light, a kiss against my forehead. It lasted only a heartbeat, maybe less, but it was enough to set fire to my entire body. My breath caught in my throat. My skin tingled where her lips had touched. Every nerve in me seemed to wake all at once, alive and trembling with something I couldn't name. I wanted to freeze time, to hold that single moment forever. When she pulled back, her hand gently brushed a strand of hair away from my face. Her fingers lingered, combing lightly through my messy hair as though the simple act of fixing it meant something deeper. You should go home, she said softly, her eyes still on me. You need sleep. But I didn't want to move. I didn't want to break the closeness, the warmth that wrapped us both in that tiny corner of the office. My lips parted, but no words came out. All I could do was stare at her, memorizing the details, the curve of her smile, the light in her eyes, the way her hand still hovered near mine, as if reluctant to let go. In that moment I wasn't her employee and she wasn't just my boss. We were simply two women, alone in the quiet of an empty office, connected by something unspoken but undeniable. Inside me a storm raged. Did she mean it? Was it just kindness? Or was there something more in the way her lips lingered against my skin, in the way her fingers traced the line of my hair? I wanted to ask, I wanted to tell her what my heart was screaming, that I had fallen for her, that every glance, every word, every smile had pulled me deeper into a world I couldn't escape. But fear sealed my lips. So instead I smiled weakly and whispered, "Thank you." Her expression softened even more, if that was possible. She gave my shoulder one last gentle squeeze before straightening. "Come on. I'll drive you home." I nodded, standing slowly, still feeling the ghost of her kiss on my skin. My legs were unsteady, not from sleep but from the weight of what had just happened. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. I pressed my fingers to my forehead, remembering the warmth of her lips. Over and over, I replayed the moment, each time convincing myself it wasn't just a dream. It had happened. Emma had kissed me. It wasn't the kiss itself that consumed me, though. It was the tenderness behind it. The care in her voice. The way she touched me like I was fragile but precious. It wasn't lust. It wasn't routine. It was something deeper, something I wanted to drown in. And as my eyes finally drifted shut, I found myself wishing for one thing. That every morning could begin this way. That she would wake me with a soft kiss, hold me against her chest, and remind me that I wasn't just another face in her office. That I was someone she wanted near. From that day forward, I carried the memory like a secret treasure, a spark that lit up even my darkest hours. It was more than just a kiss on the forehead. It was the beginning of something I hadn't dared to believe could ever be mine. After that night, nothing between us felt the same. On the surface, of course, Emma was still my boss and I was still her employee. We kept our roles intact in front of others. Professional, composed, the way people expected us to be. But beneath the surface, in the spaces between our words and the pauses between our breaths, something new began to grow. It started in the little things. When I entered the office in the mornings, I would often find her eyes on me. Not long, not obvious, but just enough that our gazes would meet for a fleeting second before she looked away. And those seconds, however brief, left me carrying warmth through the entire day. Sometimes, she would pass by my desk and let her fingers brush lightly against my shoulder as she handed me a file. The touch would seem casual, professional even, but the softness in it told another story, one only the two of us understood. I began to notice the secret smiles too. Smiles she never gave anyone else. Smiles that carried a hint of playfulness, of familiarity, as though we shared some private joke no one else could hear. Whenever she smiled at me that way, it felt like she was silently saying, "I see you. I notice you. You're special to me." The more these moments happened, the more I found myself craving them. I started looking forward to going to work, not because of the tasks waiting on my desk, but because of the possibility of catching one of her smiles, of feeling her hand graze mine as she passed me a pen, of hearing her voice soften just a little more when she spoke to me compared to others. One afternoon, after a long meeting, I was sitting at my desk with my hair falling loose around my face. I had been too busy to care about fixing it, and the strands kept slipping forward, tickling my cheeks as I typed. I was lost in the rhythm of work when I suddenly felt her beside me. "Hold still," Emma whispered, her tone gentle but firm. Before I could ask what she meant, her fingers brushed against my temple, gathering a lock of hair and tucking it neatly behind my ear. The touch was slow, deliberate, her fingertips grazing my skin in a way that sent shivers down my spine. She smoothed back another strand, her nails lightly scraping across my scalp, and I closed my eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the intimacy of such a simple gesture. "There," she said softly when she finished, her lips curving into the faintest smile. "Now I can see your eyes properly." I wanted to respond, to say something witty, but my throat had tightened. All I could do was nod, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure she must hear it. That single moment, that brush of her hand against my face, was enough to leave me restless all night, hugging my pillow and reliving the sensation until I drifted into dreams where her hands never let go. But Emma wasn't only gentle in small gestures. She was protective in ways that surprised me, ways that showed she noticed everything about me. When I worked late, she would appear at my desk, arms crossed but eyes filled with concern. "You shouldn't stay this long," she would say. "Go home. Rest." Work will still be here tomorrow. When colleagues spoke too harshly, her gaze would sharpen, stepping in before I even had the chance to defend myself. That's enough, she would cut in smoothly, her voice carrying authority that no one dared challenge. Then she would glance at me, her eyes soft again, as though silently promising she'd never let anyone hurt me. It was one of those evenings, after a long and difficult day, that she surprised me in a way I'll never forget. I was buried in paperwork, my energy drained, when a warm hand suddenly appeared in front of me, holding a cup of coffee. I looked up and found her standing there, her expression casual but her eyes glowing with something deeper. "You looked like you needed this," she said simply. I accepted the cup with trembling fingers, touched not just by the gesture but by the thoughtfulness behind it. She hadn't sent someone else to bring it. She hadn't simply told me to take a break. She had gone herself, and that made all the difference. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice almost too soft to hear. Instead of replying, she reached down and took my free hand. The movement was so natural, so unhurried, that I didn't even realize what was happening until I felt the warmth of her lips pressing gently against the back of my hand. Kiss. Not on my forehead this time, not as subtle or uncertain. This was deliberate, tender, filled with a kind of unspoken promise. Her lips lingered there just long enough for my breath to catch, long enough for my entire body to tingle with awareness. When she finally looked up, her eyes locked with mine, steady and unflinching. I saw everything in that gaze. Affection, care, a desire carefully tucked beneath her composure. It was as if she was telling me without words, "I'm here. Feel it too." I couldn't speak. My throat had gone dry, my pulse unsteady. All I could do was smile shyly, holding onto the cup as though it were the only thing grounding me in reality. That night I lay awake again, my mind replaying the moments we'd shared. Her hand in my hair, her kiss on my skin, the way her eyes softened every time they met mine. The line between boss and employee had blurred, not in a way that frightened me, but in a way that made me feel more alive than I had ever felt. Every little gesture became a thread, weaving us closer together. And though nothing had been spoken yet, though no official line had been crossed, I knew in my heart that love was slowly, quietly blooming between us. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. It was in the glances, the touches, the smiles we saved only for each other. And with every passing day, the longing inside me grew stronger, not just for her presence, but for the closeness I knew was waiting just beyond our unspoken words. The night it finally happened was quieter than most. The office had emptied out hours ago, the hum of conversation and the clatter of keyboards replaced by the stillness of after-hour silence. Only a few lights glowed softly against the glass walls, casting warm shadows that stretched long across the carpet. I was still at my desk, finishing the last touches of a report. My body was weary, but my mind buzzed with that restless energy that always seemed to come when Emma was near. I told myself I was staying late because of work, but deep down, I knew it was because I wasn't ready to leave the space where she existed. She appeared at my doorway, a silhouette framed by the dim hallway light. "Still here?" she asked, her voice soft, carrying that familiar warmth that always seemed to seep straight into my bones. I looked up, smiling nervously. "Just finishing this up. What about you? I thought you'd left already." "I was about to," she admitted, stepping inside. She carried 2 cups of coffee, setting one gently on my desk. "But then I saw your light still on. And I figured, maybe you needed company." The simple gesture sent a flutter through my chest. She didn't have to stay, didn't have to care, but she did. Always. We ended up moving to the lounge area, just outside her cabin, where the couches sat empty beneath the glow of a single lamp. The office, usually bustling with noise and movement, felt like our private world. It was strange, how silence could feel so intimate when it was shared with the right person. We sat close, sipping coffee, our shoulders brushing every now and then. Each touch, though accidental, sent sparks racing through me. My nerves tangled with excitement, butterflies fluttering wildly in my stomach. I kept sneaking glances at her, memorizing the way the lamplight softened her features, how her hair fell loose around her face, how her lips curved as she spoke. Some point she grew quiet. Her eyes lingered on me longer than usual, her fingers tracing circles on her coffee cup as though she was lost in thought. "Can I tell you something?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart skipped. "Of course." She turned toward me fully then, her gray eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. I felt naked under that gaze, like she could see through every wall I'd ever built. "I've been trying to ignore this," she began, her words slow, careful, as though each one carried weight. "Trying to be professional, to remind myself you're my employee. But I can't anymore." My breath caught in my throat. The air between us shifted, charged with something undeniable. Her hand reached out, hovering for a moment before finally resting on mine. Warmth spread instantly through my skin, through my whole body. "I like you," she said softly. "More than I should. More than I ever intended to." Time seemed to stop. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, could feel the rush of blood heating my cheeks. This was everything I had dreamed of, everything I had wished for in sleepless nights. And now it was real. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling as I whispered back, "I like you too, Emma. From the very first day." Her eyes softened, relief mingling with something deeper, something raw and vulnerable. She leaned closer, her forehead nearly touching mine. The world around us faded, the office disappearing until all I could see, all I could feel was her. "Can I kiss you?" she asked, her breath brushing against my lips. The question shattered the last of my restraint. I nodded, unable to form words. And then it happened. Her lips touched mine, tentative at first, as though she was testing the waters of something fragile. The kiss was soft, delicate, like the whisper of silk against skin. My heart exploded in my chest, every nerve alive with sensation. I responded instinctively, leaning into her, my lips moving with hers in a rhythm that felt both brand new and achingly familiar. Her hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing softly against my skin as she deepened the kiss, pulling me closer. The world narrowed to the warmth of her mouth, the taste of coffee still lingering on her lips, the faint scent of her perfume wrapping around me like a cocoon. I could feel her heartbeat against mine, fast and unsteady, mirroring my own. When she finally pulled back, her forehead rested against mine, both of us breathless, our eyes still closed as if neither of us wanted to break the spell. "That," she whispered, her lips curving into a small smile, "was long overdue." I laughed softly, the sound shaky with nerves and joy. "You have no idea how long I've been waiting for that." She opened her eyes then, her gaze so full of tenderness it made my chest ache. "This isn't just a crush for me," she said quietly. "It's more. You're more. I don't want to hide it anymore." Tears pricked my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming rush of happiness. I reached up, my fingers threading through her hair, and pulled her back into another kiss. This one was hungrier, deeper, filled with all the words we hadn't spoken, all the longing we had kept buried. Her lips moved against mine with a growing passion, her other hand sliding to the small of my back, holding me firmly as though she never wanted to let go. I melted into her, losing myself in the warmth, the closeness, the undeniable truth that this was where I was meant to be. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, I leaned against her chest, my head resting where I could hear the steady beat of her heart. She wrapped her arms around me, holding me tightly, and in that moment, I knew it wasn't just attraction. It was love. Pure, undeniable, overwhelming love. When Emma asked me to move in with her, I thought my heart might actually burst out of my chest. For a moment I couldn't even breathe. Her words echoed in my ears. "I want you with me. Not just at work, not just for moments, but always. Every morning, every night." Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. I wasn't the type of girl who cried easily, but with Emma, every emotion seemed deeper, rawer. Happiness came with tears, and love came with an ache so beautiful it was almost unbearable. I threw my arms around her and whispered against her shoulder, "Yes. 1,000 times yes. The day I moved in felt like stepping into a dream I never wanted to wake from. Emma's home was everything I expected of her. Elegant yet warm, professional yet full of hidden touches of softness. A bookshelf overflowing with novels, a vase of fresh lilies on the coffee table, soft throws draped over her couch. It smelled faintly of lavender and vanilla, like Emma herself. She showed me to the room she had prepared, but the way she held my hand told me I wouldn't need it. My things, once scattered in my small rented space, now rested against her walls, as though they belonged here all along. When I set down my last bag, Emma came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "You're home," she whispered. The words melted me. No one had ever said that to me before in a way that felt so true. That night we cooked together for the first time. It was simple. Pasta, garlic bread, and a bottle of red wine Emma had been saving for a special occasion. We bumped into each other constantly in the small kitchen, laughing every time. When I spilled a little sauce on my wrist, she caught my hand before I could grab a napkin. With her lips brushing my skin, she kissed it gently, sending a wave of shivers down my body. "Better," she said with a grin. "Much better," I whispered back, though my voice trembled. Later, curled up on the couch, we put on a movie, though neither of us paid much attention. Her arm around my shoulders, my head against her chest, the rhythm of her heartbeat. It was all I needed. Every so often she would tilt her head down to kiss my hair, and every time she did, I clung a little tighter to her. When she finally pulled me into a kiss, it was soft at first, tasting faintly of wine and garlic, but it grew deeper, more urgent, until I felt like the entire world was dissolving, leaving just the two of us. My fingers tangled in her hair, hers caressed my cheek, and when we finally pulled apart, breathless, she whispered, "I never want to let you go." That night, I fell asleep in her arms, warm and safe in a way I had never known before. The next morning, Emma woke me exactly the way I had always dreamed. The sun streamed softly through the curtains, and I felt the feather-light brush of lips against my forehead. Her hand smoothed over my hair as she whispered my name, her voice still husky with sleep. I opened my eyes to see her smile, the kind of smile that made my whole chest ache with love. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she said softly. I stretched, then curled back into her, burying my face against her chest. If this is how every morning is going to be, I never want to wake up any other way. She kissed the top of my head and murmured, "It will be. I promise." Days turned into weeks, and our life together became a beautiful routine of love and laughter. We cooked dinner side by side, sometimes serious, sometimes playful, smearing flour on each other's noses. She fed me bites of chocolate while I pretended to resist. On rainy nights, we stayed in with blankets and popcorn, watching movies or simply talking until the world outside ceased to exist. And the kisses, oh, the kisses. They weren't just lips meeting lips. They were confessions, promises, unspoken vows. Sometimes slow and lingering, sometimes fierce and urgent, but always filled with a tenderness that left me breathless. Her lips would travel from my forehead to my cheeks, to my jawline, before finally capturing mine in a way that made my heart flutter wildly. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home exhausted. Emma didn't say a word. She simply guided me to the couch, pulled me into her lap, and kissed my temple. She stroked my hair while I melted into her, her kisses soft, unhurried, filled with a love so deep it nearly brought me to tears. In those moments, I realized that moving in with her hadn't just changed my address. It had changed my life. I wasn't just living with my boss anymore. I was living with the woman who held my heart, the woman who loved me with a tenderness I had once thought didn't exist. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered, "I love you," stitched me closer to her. And as I lay in her arms each night, I knew with absolute certainty, I was finally home. Days melted into weeks and weeks into months, and somewhere in between, Emma and I stopped counting. What we had was no longer a secret office crush, or even a new relationship. It had become something much deeper, something that pulsed through the rhythm of our everyday lives. Our intimacy wasn't just about closeness, it was about knowing each other, feeling each other's silences as much as our laughter. Some evenings, when I came home drained from work, I barely had the energy to take off my shoes. Emma would meet me at the door, her arms opening before I even asked, and I would fall into her embrace like a weary traveler finally reaching home. She would kiss my temple softly, stroke my hair back and whisper, "It's okay, love. I've got you." On those nights, she would guide me to the couch, curl up beside me, and let me lay my head against her chest. Her heartbeat was the music I needed most. She'd tilt my chin up eventually, her lips finding mine with the gentlest of touches. Slow kisses that didn't demand anything but gave everything. Each kiss was like a balm, erasing the heaviness of the day. Other nights, the roles reversed. Emma had her own battles, moments where her confident, unshakable boss self cracked under the weight of responsibilities. I learned to see the signs, the quiet sigh, the way her shoulders seemed to carry invisible burdens. On those nights, it was my turn to hold her. I would guide her to bed, slide beside her, and take her hand. "Talk to me," I'd whisper. Sometimes she did, pouring out fears she never admitted to anyone else. Other times she stayed quiet, and that was okay. I kissed the back of her hand, her palm, her wrist, moving slowly, reminding her without words that she didn't have to be strong all the time. When she finally leaned in, her lips met mine not in passion, but in gratitude. Gentle, lingering kisses, our breaths mingling. Her forehead pressed to mine as though drawing strength from me. There were passionate moments too. Nights where one kiss would turn into another, until time no longer mattered. Her hands on my waist, mine tangled in her hair, our mouths moving together in a rhythm that felt like the universe itself had slowed to watch us. Sometimes our kisses were playful, peppered with laughter as she nibbled at my lip and I pushed her back onto the couch. Other times they were desperate, hungry, as though we had been starved for each other all day. But always there was love beneath it. One evening, after a particularly long kiss that left us both breathless, she pulled back just enough to whisper, "Do you realize how much I love you?" I touched her cheek, brushing away a strand of hair that had fallen. "Yes," I whispered. "But only because it's the same way I love you." She smiled then, a smile that lit her whole face, and kissed me again. Slower, deeper, as if sealing a promise between us. It wasn't just the kisses that defined us, though. It was the little things. The way she brewed my coffee exactly how I liked it without asking. The way I slipped encouraging notes into her laptop bag before a big meeting. The way she covered me with a blanket when I fell asleep on the couch. The way I massaged her shoulders after long hours at work. Love wasn't only in the grand gestures. It lived in the smallest ones, too. One night, lying together in bed, her arm wrapped around me, we spoke about the future. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. "Do you ever wonder where this is going?" Emma asked softly, her lips brushing against my hair. I turned in her arms to face her. "It's going where we take it," I said. "I don't need labels, I don't need promises written down. Just need you. Every morning, every night. That's enough." She cupped my face and kissed me then, slow and tender, as though she wanted to press those words into my skin. When we finally broke apart, she whispered, "You are my forever. I don't ever want to imagine a life without you." Tears pricked at my eyes, but I smiled through them. "Then you'll never have to." We fell asleep like that, her forehead against mine, our hands intertwined, our hearts speaking the same language. And as I drifted off, I knew that what we had wasn't just romance. It was home, commitment, and a bond so deep it would carry us through every tomorrow. The morning sunlight filtered gently through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. I stirred slowly, still half dreaming when I felt it, the softest touch of lips against my forehead. My eyes fluttered open, and there she was, Emma, smiling down at me with the same tenderness she had shown that very first day in the office. "Good morning, my love," she whispered, her voice husky with sleep, wrapping me against her chest. I nestled into her warmth, listening to the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. Her fingers brushed through my hair, slow and gentle, untangling strands as if each one mattered. In that moment, everything else disappeared. There were no deadlines, no emails, no office walls around us. Only her arms, her scent of jasmine and lavender, and the way she kissed the top of my head as if she never wanted to let me go. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the tenderness of it all. My heart whispered the truth I had always known but now lived every day. This was love, the kind of love that heals, protects, and fills every corner of your soul. From a simple office crush, I murmured against her, my voice catching with emotion, to now living in your arms. This is everything I ever dreamed of. Emma tightened her embrace, pressing her lips softly to mine, lingering, unhurried. And this is only the beginning, she whispered back. I'll love you in every morning to come. I smiled through the tears threatening to spill, my hand cupping her face. The world outside could wait. All I needed was here, her heartbeat beneath my cheek, her fingers in my hair, her love wrapping around me like the warmest blanket. Two women, once bound by roles of boss and employee, now bound by something infinitely greater, love. Complete, unshakable, forever. As the morning sun climbed higher, I held her tighter, knowing that no matter what came tomorrow, we had already found our forever in each other. And in her arms I was finally home.